Figueiredo versus Moreno 4, the quadrilogy, takes place this weekend in the co-main event of UFC 283, Teixeira versus Hill, and I can't wait for this to finally be over so we can move on. Can we move on, please, after this? Fingers crossed there's not going to be some kind of draw or no contest, so we have to do this again. Can this be the last time that we see this fight? And can we finally get a definitive winner so we can move on? And also so that these other flyweight contenders like Alejandro Pantoja can actually have a career of their own? Please, MMA gods? I mean, I like the fourth fight. It's a quadrilogy. It's crazy. It's got some hype behind it. It's good for the flyweight division because they're both big names, including, like, I think the division would rather Moreno win. I think the UFC would rather Moreno win this fight as well. But come on. We got to move on. And I think we are going to move on once Brandon Moreno defeats Deiveson Figueiredo, which is my prediction. I'm going to go with Brandon Moreno winning this fight via decision. I think he'll win the later rounds of this fight. I think in the first round, Figueiredo, if he plays it patient, can win the first round. We saw that in the trilogy that they had, where Figueiredo knocked him off balance with a leg kick. He took some punches in that first round as well, but still, I think when it comes to just first round explosiveness and who's going to be able to lead the dance for the first 5 minutes when they're both fresh, I think Figueiredo has that advantage. But please, can we move on after this? And also, I believe that Brandon Moreno is going to win the last 4 rounds of this fight. Maybe the last 3 rounds of this fight. So, I think we're going to see a 49-46 scorecard in favor of Brandon Moreno and also some 48-47s as well. Very, very competitive fight though. But my main argument for this is, when you watch the two of them fight, listen, Figueiredo has that power, and I'm not taking away from him that he has the ability to make a sudden change in a fight, but it seems like he's kind of heavily relying on that power to change the fight for him. And I feel like Moreno's style of winning against Figueiredo is more trustworthy than Figueiredo's style of winning against Moreno. You know what I mean? And even if you are relying on Figueiredo to have more of a finishing chance and more power, Moreno's the guy who finished Figueiredo in this entire trilogy. I know Figueiredo had a terrible weight cut, and that's why Moreno had that chance to finish him in the second fight, but still, that has to be taken into consideration. And when I watch these two fight, and I've watched all of their fights recently, Moreno's winning the majority of the time. Like, I'd say Moreno's winning 70% of their fight whenever they fight each other. But then you have a guy like Figueiredo who just has these crazy moments where he rocks Moreno, or he like dropped him twice in their trilogy fight as well. And of course the first fight was very even, but it feels like the more recent fights between them have been kind of, although he lost the trilogy, and I do believe Figueiredo lost the trilogy, it seems to be like 75% of the time Moreno's getting the better of the exchanges. So as the younger guy here, again, with the 2-inch reach advantage, I think he's going to get this one done. People are talking about, Figueiredo's competing in front of his home crowd and stuff like that. I think that's going to be quite bad for Figueiredo because this is his big moment to make a name for himself. He's never really had that fight in Brazil that's going to make him a superstar because he's been a champion and they haven't been to Brazil since he's been a champion, because he became a champion in 2020. And that was in America. He fought in the Apex again, or in America. So he hasn't had his chance in Brazil to become that big star. And I think the pressure's on him. And I get this vibe out of the two of them. I don't know if anyone else shares this opinion. But whenever they talk about fighting each other again, it seems like Moreno's willing to do it. And I think that maybe just comes with the natural hunger of not being the champion and being the contender that's looking to become the champion. But there also seems to be a vibe with Figueiredo where he's kind of sick of fighting Moreno. I don't know if anyone else is getting that, but I've been watching some interviews of his and just listening to some of the things that he says between the fights, like he was hoping Cara France would win against Moreno so he'd have a fresh opponent. He was looking to fight maybe someone else while Moreno was fighting Cara France in the first place as well. Like, he seems like he's sick of this. And that's not a really good mindset to be in as a champion going into this fight compared to Moreno, who ain't the champ. I know he's the interim champ, but still, he needs to get his back. And I feel like that hunger going into this quadrilogy is going to sort of tilt the fight in favor of Brandon Moreno. And yeah, just in general, the fights that they had, Figueiredo won round 1 of their third fight. The third fight's the most interesting one to look back at when you're trying to say who's going to win this one, because it only happened a year ago. And then it was sort of Moreno outstriking Figueiredo every single round in rounds 2 to 5. So he outstruck him in rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5 very clearly. But Figueiredo dropped him at the end of round 3 with a couple of seconds left on the clock. So he wins round 3. He dropped him at one point towards the end of round 5. So that won him round 5 as well. I think Moreno's adjustments that he can make for this fight are a lot easier to make than Figueiredo's adjustments. Figueiredo is behind Moreno on a technical skills level, it feels like. You know what I mean? Like, he needs to become a better fighter than Moreno to sort of make his adjustment to be able to win. Whereas Moreno just needs to, like, watch out for the leg kick early on, watch out for those haymakers, and, like, keep your defense up a little bit. There's more manageable changes Moreno can make to his game in the short term to improve him to a point where he can now tilt the fight in his favor, compared to Figueiredo, who needs to, like, deconstruct his game and renew himself like he had to do for the trilogy. And I also want to talk about the fact that Moreno's been active. I know he didn't look the best against Kai Kara-France, but I'm telling you, man, Kai Kara-France, very dangerous guy in the flyweight division, and it could have been 2-1 Moreno in that fight. Either way, he eventually got the body kick on Kai Kara-France in the third round and finished him. And I think him coming off a finish, TKO finish, is going to be a big deal for him as well. That's a pretty big thing in the flyweight division. Really good momentum there. After Figueiredo just went in his last fight to a war with Moreno, you've got Moreno fighting more actively against a hungry up-and-comer, beating him more impressively than he did the first time against Kai Kara-France. That's another sign that Moreno has massively improved since who he was a couple of years ago, because Kai Kara-France has massively improved since then, and Moreno made that fight look easier. Like, it was a 5-rounder this time in the rematch that they had, but he didn't even need the 5-rounder. You know what I mean? So I'm really looking forward to this. Really, really looking forward to this. I think Moreno has the momentum. He's been more active. And there's also just a part of it where he's the younger guy. He's the younger guy. He can make more improvements. I know he's had a bit of shake-up with the camps that he's been a part of. And, you know, James Krause has been, you know, his whole thing. Whatever's going on with him. I don't even want to get into that right now, but whatever's going on with James Krause right now has sort of affected Moreno, but as a champion like Moreno, you can find another gym to facilitate you, and people will work around you. If you're a lower ranked guy at James Krause's gym and all this goes down, you kind of messed up your whole career, because no one's going to really make sacrifices for you, but people are going to rally around Moreno to make this fight work out and to get him to a better camp, and massive gyms are going to be accepting of him and stuff like that. So I don't think that's going to be too much of a factor. I just think that's going to make him more hungry and more disciplined. And then you got Deiveson Figueiredo, 35 years of age in the flyweight division. Moreno's 29. You know what I mean? I know he looks 12 and acts like a 12-year-old with his Legos, but he's 29 years of age. He's a grown man. He's a man. Don't know about grown, but he's a man. And he's 29. And Figueiredo's 35 at flyweight. And Figueiredo's had a lot of wars. So has Moreno, but taking those wars at 35, 34, 33 is different than taking them at 28, 27 in your career. And I think that this is sort of another reason why I'm sort of leaning in favour of Moreno in this fight. So yeah, that's what I'm leaning towards. I'm leaning towards Brandon Moreno. Plus, I like Figueiredo's weight cuts way better when he's active. I feel like they're always better when he's active. And the times that we've seen Moreno have a bit of a dodgy weight cut, they've kind of been, you know, like, he came back for the Moreno rematch after the original fight. So they fought in December of 2020. He came back in June of 2021. And he had a really bad weight cut for Moreno. And I was shocked by that, because how are you having a tough weight cut for Moreno in the rematch when you've had 6 months to prepare for this fight and you've had 6 months off, but you can make weight twice in 3 weeks? You know what I mean? He made weight against Alex Perez in November of 2020. November 21st as well. And then he made weight on December the 12th of 2020, just a couple of weeks later. So it's like, I feel like his weight cuts are better when he's active. And now he's been out for a year. So I'm worried about the weight cut. You know what I mean? I'm worried about the pressure on Figueiredo here. His big time to make himself a star. And I'm just worried about all factors that seem to lean towards Moreno in this matchup. I think he's got the boxing advantage. I think he'll land a lot on Figueiredo in this fight. I think it is going to be a decision. I don't see either one of them finishing each other. I think they know that this is all or nothing in this matchup, so I don't see anyone quitting or giving up a bad position. I think they're going to fight for everything. I just can't help but realize that, listen, you can say, Figueiredo made adjustments, and that's why he knocked down Moreno in their third fight. But Figueiredo didn't score a single knockdown in their first two. And then 3 of them came out of nowhere in the third. Could I be wrong in hindsight, and maybe Figueiredo's made those adjustments and that's why he's finding those knockdowns? Maybe, but I'm going to maybe, to kind of help my argument here, suggest maybe he struck lightning in a bottle 3 times. And odds of that happening 3 times again is pretty low in my opinion. You know what I mean? It just kind of is. Three knockdowns. You didn't knock him down once in the first fight. Once in the second fight. You got finished in the second fight in round 3. You didn't knock down Perez. You know, the last guy you knocked down was Benavidez twice in that brutal fight that he had with him. But, I don't know. I feel like Figueiredo kind of pulled it out the bag and just got it done against Moreno the last time and snuck it by getting his little knockdowns in the middle of the rounds. Whereas I think Moreno is just overall the better flyweight, proven at this point, to be honest. So, yeah, I'm going to side with Brandon Moreno, which I think will be good for the division. And I think Figueiredo will probably move up if he loses this, because I don't see there being like some kind of pentology between the two of them. But we could also maybe see, listen, if Alejandro Pantoja beats Brandon Moreno afterwards, because if you don't know, Alejandro Pantoja is the short notice backup replacement fighter for this fight. He will be making weight at UFC 283, and he will be the backup opponent, so he's guaranteed a title shot next. If Moreno wins and Pantoja beats Moreno, which is what I've predicted to happen in the flyweight division, Figueiredo has a win over Pantoja, and it was a good fight. So maybe they just run it back in a Brazil pay-per-view at the end of the year, or a Brazil fight night main event at the end of the year. We'll see what happens. But yeah, looking forward to this matchup. I hope Moreno pulls it off. I think he's going to pull it off as well. I just think Figueiredo's running out of time to make the improvements that Moreno can make. Yeah. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.